Hi there, welcome to Floating in Dreams. Today we're going to be doing my eyeshadow palette review for January. Welcome to everybody watching today. Thank you so very much for joining me. Once a month, I like to come on here and chat to you about all of the eyeshadow palettes that I tried for the first time in that given month. And this month was a lot because I did get myself quite a few eyeshadow palettes towards the end of 2023. And I wanted to make sure I got through them ASAP. So there are 10 palettes here today. So let me just get to it because we've got a lot to talk about. And in case you're new here, you've never been to my channel, hi, my name is Maaike. I live in the Netherlands. I have fair skin with a cool to neutral undertone, which greatly influences how I feel about makeup. I've been reviewing makeup for more than a decade. I love me some Essence and Catrice. Eyeshadow palettes is another love, and I really like getting the use out of my makeup, so any of these palettes are probably going to make it into Shop My Stashes and like videos where I like to go back to things. So if that's something that you might be interested in, then I hope you'd like to consider subscribing. Let me get to these 10 palettes. So yes, 10 eyeshadow palettes that I tried, and I'm gonna have to be quite fair. It was a struggle to try them all in time, which is why sadly I had to skip my video that I like to do once a month as well, where I like to go back to older palettes. I just didn't have the time. I was swamped with work. It was test week, lots of grading to do, lots of working from home as well, where I didn't really have to talk to anyone, so I went makeupless for a lot of those days as well. So I didn't do my makeup as often as I usually do, and it also meant that I almost ran out of time to try everything before sitting down to film this video and telling you all about them. But yeah, I did try a bunch of things. Some of them like small things, some of them high-end, some of them drugstore, some of them indie, and some of these looks you will have seen because I did wear them as I was filming throughout the month. So if you've seen any of my videos going live in January, you might have seen them. First things first, I do have to be very honest. As I'm sitting down to film this video, I haven't quite managed to use all of them yet, but because both of these palettes from Kiko swatch the same, I'm pretty sure that I can say a little bit about how both of these worked. The one that I did already try, these are the Glamour Multi-Finish Eyeshadow Palettes from Kiko Milano, and this is in the shade 6. You get some like tealy green things and a gold, and to me, it looked like these would be like grayish taupey shades, but they're like sagey greens, which I had not expected at all. So I ended up liking this a lot more because my favorite one of the two, just looking at it when I got them in, was going to be the blue one, because this does have those like taupey silvers. So between the two, I thought number 5 was going to be my favorite. That's the one I haven't put on my eyes yet. But now that I have tried this one already, because I started with my least favorite one, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be able to love this as much. By the time you are watching this, I will have tried that palette, so I will be inserting like the look I've done with that palette. These are very small palettes. I like, because of the way they're laid out, I need to use quite a few of these shades to really make them work. The only thing I would have loved not to have in here are these like yellow tones. Like these 7 shades I'm very happy with. But those 2 golds I kind of feel clash a bit too much. And I have just really come to the realization as I was doing a lot of the looks for this video that what you see a lot of people do always is that they like put seemingly very random things together, like a yellow with a purple or whatever. And I find on my skin tone that it's very difficult to blend those things together, which is why I like to go for more complementary shades. And I felt in that palette that the gold, which I did use, was just a little bit too much of a clash. And I like things to just be very sort of complementary. I don't really, like when it comes to my eye makeup, I feel like I do like to contrast things in my clothing, but I like my eye look to be quite monochromatic, you could say. This is the blue one, as I mentioned. It's got like grays and taupes and like some silvery things. I can't wait to play with this. It looks stunning. If this works as well for me as the other one, then I'm going to be very happy. I'm now very happy to report to you that I have finally found Kiko eyeshadow palettes that I feel work well enough. Like in the past, I've always had Kiko palettes just to have one, but they never wowed me. I felt the color stories didn't come together. They were sometimes a little bit patchy. I didn't love them. Do I think that these are worth the money? I mean, I think that within the drugstore realm, you can still find better eyeshadow in palettes than what Kiko has to offer. I still think that their eyeshadow sticks and their like single shadows are far, far better than what they put in palettes. But these two color stories do work, which is like giving them a notch up in my book. So I can no longer claim that I don't like Kiko Milano eyeshadow. I have found some things now, also from the recent limited edition collection, which I've shown you in a video, that work really well and that I do enjoy. So Kiko can do some good eyeshadow for sure. I think I will stick to their singles though. But these two palettes are good enough that I think I'm not going to declutter them. They're going to stay in my collection for a little while for sure. And then a palette I played with, and so many people complimented me on the look that I did with it, and it's the Glamlite Ghostface palette. I had not tried a Glamlite palette in a hot minute. I only tried one. It was the Cake palette, and it was everyone's favorite palette the year it came out, and it wasn't mine. I didn't like the shimmers. I thought the mattes were good, but the shimmers I really wanted the palette for just didn't perform very well. And on my skin tone, some of the very nice bright pops of like almost like neon green that were in that palette looked really, really strange when I blended them out. So I could only like wear it like full on or not at all. And again, I like my blendability. I like things to like, at least like even if I go for something as bold as a bright blue eye, I still want it to look blended. I don't want there to be any harsh lines. It just doesn't really go with my features, I find. I prefer a softer look, and I just couldn't create it with that palette. So I was like, okay, this is the first time Glamlite has done it in a very long time that I'm interested in. I'm going to try them again. And they, of course, did a heap ton of Halloween palettes, and this is one of them. I bought this one through Monolith, in case you're wondering. If you're in the EU, Glamlite is stocked on Monolith. And what does the palette look like? It's essentially a gray palette. But it's not boring grays. I know a lot of people who have been reviewing it saying, oh, this is so boring. It doesn't really work for me. I couldn't stop using this. I think I did 4 looks with it. Because on me, all the undertones show up. Because I have fair skin and it just works. And I have that cooler undertone, which sometimes can make warm tones all look the same on me. But then I use something like this, and I get the distinct different looks. You know what I mean? So I would like to have some more shimmers in here though, because we only have 5. There's really just 5 shimmers. This doesn't count because both of these are mattes with a sparkle to them. So to me, I would have liked some more actual shimmers and like fewer of these like deeper mattes, because whether I use this or this or this or this, it's not going to make any difference on my skin tone, to be quite fair. But I love, like, these have a purpley undertone, goes really beautifully together with this. These like taupey things have a bit of a green undertone to them. Then you get some grays with like more of a blue undertone. Yes, it's a gray palette. Gray palettes can be really boring and but because of the undertones this has, I did really enjoy it. These shimmers are actually working for me in this. I didn't have to go in with 4 layers and it still didn't look very opaque. With this, it worked really well. But like I mentioned, I just feel that we should just get more. We need more shimmers. That's the only gripe I have here. And there's nothing here, like there's no like true inner corner highlight. So for me, I would have liked there to be like 1 or 2 true shimmers instead of this. And then this could have been like an instant favorite for me. It wasn't because of that, but I do really appreciate it and I like what this does for me. It looks very natural on, and I just really rate it highly for that reason. Do I recommend you go out and buy it? Unless you're like a gray eyeshadow and you know those undertones are going to show up for you, you may not like this. I think if you're very warm toned, this is just going to look like an ashy mess and you're not going to love it. But for me, it worked really well. Shall we talk about what's on my eyes today? Because I tried some blue, green, purple palettes this month. And the one that's on my eyes is the Winter Wonderland from Cosmic Brushes or Cosmic Beauty. Some people call them cosmic brushes. Some people call them cosmic beauty. This is what the palette looks like. And the minute this came out, I knew I want to try that. So I did 3 different looks with this palette. I did a look with like the tealy greens. The blue look is what I'm wearing today. And then I did a look with the purple tones in here as well. Really pretty. It's got some multi-chromes in, which I didn't really need because I don't feel they add much. Like they kind of throw off the palette at some point. Like I do like this one. This is like a blue, green, purple. That worked really well, but I'm wearing this one today and I just feel it kind of throws off the blue look. It doesn't have too much, like it doesn't have enough of a blue base for it to really work. It's more like a peach and it's a bit random in here, I feel. But overall, really liked it. I already knew the Cosmic Brushes formula from having tried their Serenity palette, which I think this one goes with really, really well. As far as the blue, green, purple palette goes, it has all my favorite shades in, because rather than having very stark greens, the greens in here are teal, and teals have a lot of blue in them. So the teals could go like as a contrast with the purples, or you can like use them as a complementary shade to the blues. As I mentioned, I have just really found that I like doing something that just goes together. So I've done looks like this right now, and I was trying to be a little bit more creative with my placement as I was playing with this. So I did a look where I sort of like tried winging it out past my brows. This one, I'm using 2 shimmers on the lid. This is the least creative one, I think. And I think I did a bit of a halo eye with the purples. So I had a lot of fun playing with this. It is the formula that I know Cosmic Brushes Beauty can do really well, and just what they do is nice. However, I think this palette was twice as much price point wise compared to what I paid for the Serenity. The Serenity was around like 20-25 euros, and I think that included shipping, and this was like 39, and I was like, ooh. This brand, however, is also available through Monolith, but they sell out super quickly. So if you struggle getting things from the UK, because Cosmic Brushes is, of course, a UK-based indie brand that does palettes that are slightly more affordable, but I feel that because of those multi-chromes, they probably had to up the price because of this for this one. However, we all know if I go colorful, it's going to be a green, blue, purple, teal kind of thing. That's my vibe, so I'm not going to fault this. It's got great mattes, great shimmers. These shimmers do have a little bit of a putty texture, so I do struggle picking them up with a brush, but with a finger, they work really well, and once on the eye, I can blend them, which I love, because sometimes, as we'll see in a little bit, sometimes you get these really flaky shimmers that once they're applied with a finger, you just can't really blend. But this one was very successful for me. I really enjoyed it. And in terms of a colorful palette, I think this is one of the better ones I've tried. Speaking of a colorful palette that I tried and I had heard so many negative reviews about this palette, I just think you need to have fair skin to enjoy this one. What am I talking about? It's the Warlock palette from Fantasy Cosmetica. I have mentioned how Fantasy Cosmetica is now quickly becoming one of my favorite eyeshadow palette brands. Also available through Monolith. That's where I picked up mine. I just wait for them to stock it on there. It just saves you the custom fees for sure. And if you get an order that is over 100 euros, you get free shipping to the Netherlands at least. So they're based in Switzerland. So they're better for EU customers. I did 2 looks with this. The first look I did was with this, and then I did the greens with the black as a bit of liner for the second look. And this looks like such a hodgepodge of different colors that may not go together. The reds pull pink on me. If you saw my recent videos where it looks like I'm wearing a bright pink look with a bright pink lip, it's this. It's these 2 shades with the blues on the lower lash line. I use this palette. It looks like a red here, but on me, and I have found this in the past, where certain shades just pull a little differently, and with, for instance, like the Glam Light Cake palette that I mentioned before, it turned like the wrong direction, but for me, this went into the right direction. So these 2 shades turned into that beautiful fuchsia pink shade together, and then I just use some of the blues on the lower lash line, and I use a bit of blue eyeliner to accentuate that blue tone, you could say. This looks like a black, but as I was using it, I realized it's in fact an incredibly dark green. I'm not sure if you can see it here. I think like this, you might be able to tell that this isn't a black at all. So it goes really well with these four shades. The only shade I don't like is this bright green. The bright green has a little bit of patchiness, and I think it's because of the pigment. Like bright shades like this that are almost neon are notoriously hard to create. But what I ended up doing is that I blended these two shades together because I had an inkling that this by itself wouldn't work really well for me because it just doesn't really go with my undertone. So blending wise, it's never going to look right and it's going to look muddy. But these two together in the crease were stunning. And then I just complemented it with those shimmers and it worked really well. And used that very dark green as a bit of liner. And I don't know what all the negativity is about because I really enjoy this. It was very stunning, really beautiful, a little bit more colorful than I would normally wear, but I thought it looked stunning. The blendability was great. I enjoyed the shimmers in here. We also get some like flippy shades in here. Fantasy Cosmetica does that quite a bit as well. But very workable, very blendable, easy to pick up with a brush. I honestly do not know why this had so many negative reviews back when this first launched. Maybe people were just trying to build looks off of that one bright green and felt disappointed that way, but I've tried every single shade in this palette, and save for that bright green that I think you just can't really use by itself. You need to blend it in with other things, and then it works beautifully, or use it as a blend shade or something. But yeah, if you try to build that one up to full opacity, that could be where some of the issues are coming from. But then I feel that people haven't tried the palette enough to be able to give it a review, which I feel happens so much in the makeup community. Like people try 3 shades, and even though the palette has 15 shades, they completely discredit the entire palette, whereas they haven't really tried all the shades yet. Oh well. Something I'm a little less of a fan of is this guy right here. It's the Blend Bunny Lure palette. And when I say less of a fan, it's just because I couldn't really get down with the shimmers in here. And we all know I prefer a shimmer over a matte. So if the shimmers end up looking patchy on me and I just don't feel I can pick them up very well and they just don't look great on my slightly textured lids, I'm not going to love the palette. Do I love the colors in the Lure? Yeah, this is so pretty. Again, blue, green, purple with a bit of pink, and some neutrals in here as well. And the neutrals are what saves this palette. This shimmer is life. It's really, really beautiful. And what I ended up doing, I did 3 looks with this. I blended the neutrals and the greens together, the purples with the pinks, and the like greeny teal shades with the blues. Here's the thing. There's a couple of things I already mentioned, I think, when I first got it. I think the gap between this dark teal and this brighter pop is too big. This jump is too big. You can just see that the other shades in this line aren't as bright as this one is. So if this had more of the teal in, if it was a little closer to this, I would have liked it better. For me right now, whether I use any of these two, there's really no difference. For a palette that where the aim is to give you rose, where everything blends together seamlessly and you get a shimmer to match it, I just don't feel it works quite the way I'd like it to. In the pink row, we get a peach shimmer, which completely throws me off. But other than that, these shimmers work quite well. But as I mentioned, I struggled with some of these shimmers. I could barely pick them up with a brush because of how flaky they are. Use them with fingers and it looked okay, but for some reason when I did the look with like the blue and the greens, it looked incredibly patchy on one eye and textured, and it looked just not very nice. So this may look really pretty on people who don't have textured lids like I do. I'm nearing 40 this year, guys, so very, very close, just a couple of months before my 40th birthday. And I just don't think that, like, this formula is just a little bit too heavy if you have anything that's, like, not a lid who's in their 20s. You know what I mean? So as much as I like the colors, the mattes work beautiful on. I just want A, more shimmers, B, better shimmers, and 3, shimmers that do not accentuate my texture. I mean, they can do it in a similar color story, because I tried this one first and then I tried this one. So I thought that maybe it had to do with, you know, I did a couple of looks back to back. So I was like, maybe it's just because my eyes are getting a little bit like irritated from taking off my makeup all the time. It wasn't, because I used the Cosmic Brushes palette after it, and those shades went on fine. No patchiness, no texture, no nothing. So it's not to do with my lids or the way I prime my lids or what products I use underneath. It was really this palette. So that's why I'm like, didn't love that. I have to say, though, that this shimmer worked really well, and also the purple and the pink shimmer I had no issues with. It was really with, like, this one, this shimmer right here. That's the one that just looked a little off for me. But yeah, overall, I like it, but if you want my recommendation, if I'm looking for a blue, green, purple palette, which one would you recommend? I'd say go for the Cosmic Brushes over the Lure, now that I've tried both of them. They do different things, though. This has many more shimmers, and you get multi-chromes and things to play with, so that's my vibe. If you love mattes, though, I think Blend Bunny mattes are, like, I can see why people love Blend Bunny, because if you're a matte girl or guy and you love doing, like, your cut creases and, like, really defined looks, this is your jam. But this is the palette that made me realize that I'm just not a high contrast, carved out look kind of girly. It's just not my vibe. It's just not what I like to wear. It's not how I like to do my makeup. It doesn't go with my eye shape. So for me, this was just a little less perfect, even though I can still appreciate it. And I think there is definitely a lot of people who like this, and I can see why so many people love Blend Bunny for sure. It's not my first Blend Bunny palette either. I also tried the the Dollhouse and the Surge. I have those, and those are still in my collection because I do really enjoy them. And there are shades that I like. But here's, of course, what I would like to do at some point. When I go back to these, I'll probably marry them in one way or another, because I feel there are certain, like, mattes that I'm missing in this one that this one does have. And then this has the shimmers that I wanted this one to have. So I think they are a match made in heaven. So if you happen to have both of these as well, like I do, give them a whirl together, because I think they can really nicely complement each other. Of course, you don't need both. I'm just saying, like, hey, if you do, for people who do, you might like that. And then we have our Beauty Bay palette, the Metamorphic. I decided, just like Glamlight actually, to give Beauty Bay another whirl. I have tried a couple of Beauty Bay palettes before. I've tried the Wilderness, the Age of Opulence, and the Book of Magic. And the Book of Magic is sort of like a placeholder in my collection so that I have a Beauty Bay palette so I can talk about it from time to time. And I was hoping that this could be its replacement, and also I was hoping that this was going to be a palette that I liked better than all the other Beauty Bay palettes I've tried. So it's got like a little door that opens, which is a bit annoying to show you, but here is what the palette looks like. Again, blue, green, purple, like blues and purples, you could say, with some taupey things. This is the same formula that Beauty Bay has been doing for years. So formula-wise, this is, again, not my favorite. Like all the Beauty Bay palettes I've tried. I greatly dislike the Beauty Bay formula. I know a lot of people like it, and I can see, again, why people like the Beauty Bay formula. It gives you a lot of bang for your buck. They just do. For how affordable they are, for how pigmented these mattes are, for how impactful these shimmers are, and you're on the cheap, you're on a budget, Beauty Bay is where it's at. Like, they do some really good things. It's just not for me. It's just not my vibe. It's, again, a little bit like the Blend Bunny Lure shimmers. I feel we get a lot of shimmers in here. It only has 5 mattes. But I feel I can barely pick them up with a brush. I need to layer them with fingers. They blend, but they're just not perfect. Again, I did like 3 or 4 looks with this. And with this, and this is what I've had with other Beauty Bay palettes in the past. The mattes and the shimmers just don't do on my lids what I think it's going to do when I look at it in the pan. So It was especially the case with, oh, I used it upside down, I see. When I was using it, I actually used it like this, and the palette is supposed to go this way. Oh well. But this blue down here, or gray actually, looks a bit more blue in the viewfinder. In real life, it looks like a gray. It turned blue, like blue. It didn't even look gray. There was no more gray left on my face, which kind of, it just was a little bit disappointing because of that reason. This taupey thing barely showed up. I really had to build it like 3-4 layers to get it to look like it did in the pan. This blue has a really weird undertone that makes it go very warm toned. Yes, it has pretty shades. Oh yeah, that was another thing. This purple, a warm tone. In a sea of cool tones, we get one random warm tone purple. It doesn't quite come together for me. So as much, I did really enjoy the looks I did with this, I have to say. Like the way the looks turned out, I was quite happy with, especially like the gray sort of smoky eye I end up doing. I think I did a bit of a halo eye with some of like darker grays, and I thought that was really, really stunning on. It works and performs like cheap makeup, and it doesn't last as long on my lids as some of the other things I've shown you today. Because I wore that, like, a blue look I did with it for an entire day, and it just started to crease and, like, bunch up everywhere. It started to look patchy. So, yes, I can see why people love this, because this is some of the most affordable, highly pigmented eyeshadow on the market today at a super affordable price point. It's just, I'm a bit spoiled for choice. I'm not gonna lie, I'm spoiled. Very, very spoiled with the brands I have in my collection, the makeup I've tried now and also in the past. And I think this is decent makeup. I mean, it's not bad. It's just, it doesn't quite live up to my expectations. And I hold my eyeshadow to an incredibly high standard, and this is just not really meeting that standard. And then I wanted to make sure to compare a couple of palettes as well. So let's compare. I'm gonna talk about 3 palettes in tandem, because I kind of felt that the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes, the BPerfect Gravity, and the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude kind of fit into the same vein. They're not the same palettes, they are different, and I'll tell you about those differences as well. But I was like, you know what? I think that if you were to own one of these, you could get the same vibe. We're talking vibes here. We're not talking dupes. We're not talking about products doing exactly the same thing. That's not what I'm going for here. I'm saying that if you like the look of the Makeup by Mario and Natasha Denona, but again, you want a more affordable option and you want even a little bit more depth out of your shadows, that the BPerfect Gravity palette does a lot of similar things. And I hope you can see when I'm holding this up. I do hope this one came cracked, so I have to be very careful with it. But I hope you can see where I'm coming from. Yes, it has more depth. It has more smoky things. But I know a lot of people like that sort of like contrast. So if you want more contrast than you get out of the other two, BPerfect. Does this have the same sort of like super shimmery, almost ethereal looking shadows in it? It certainly does. Again, like the Ghostface palette, where did it go? I wanted to make sure I could keep these, like hold these side by side as well, because again, I think you might like catch my drift. Like this is the more gray tone version of this. This still has browns in. This one doesn't. This doesn't have a single brown. So this has some warmth. It's a little bit more neutral, especially like if you were to, can I tilt it this way without dropping things out of the pan? Yeah. So if you covered this up, you can see where I'm coming from when it comes to like Makeup by Mario, Natasha Denona. It's very much that vibe, but you get 4 super intense deep shades to really deepen things up. It's got 5 true shimmers and 1 sort of matte with a sparkle. I really enjoyed this. And I like this better than I do the Beauty Bay formula. And I had never tried Be Perfect before. This is my first time trying Be Perfect because their other palettes were super big. So I remember saying when this was launched, like, oh, I would like to get this, but I'm going to hold off. I'm not going to buy it. But then Natasha Denona came out with the I Need a Nude, and the Ethereal Eyes came back in stock, and I was like, that might make like for a nice little comparison. And I'm very glad I finally got to try it. I'm not sure, because I have the other two, how often I'd reach for this. Like, this is the best, the one that came broken is the best shimmer in the entire palette. I really, really love that. But the rest of the shimmers in this aren't as interesting as the shimmers in the Natasha Denona and the Makeup by Mario. Like, those are just far more sparkly and iridescent and like a light layer, and then you can intensify it over and over to really build it up. And especially with something like the silver or like this very intense dark gray, it's like boom, kapow, here we go, this is the eyeshadow. So this is more like your traditional metallics, you could say. So again, if you have more mature lids, this may not pull the same way on you. The mattes in this are stunning. So I did really enjoy this. It's really, really pretty, but you can tell that this isn't like super sophisticated eyeshadow. Will it work? Will it give you the look for less? For sure, for sure. So again, if you don't want to splurge on something like this, you might want to try the Be Perfect Gravity, and you have the added bonus of getting a bit more contrast. So can't fault them for that. I, as I mentioned, had never tried Be Perfect before, and my first experience with them is incredibly positive. If you want to go for a more affordable option here, I'd say go for the Be Perfect over the Beauty Bay one. And then we have these two. I already know that Amanda Z did a video comparing these with swatches, so if that's what you want to do, I'm going to refer you to her video. I can leave it in the description box down below. She is a creator on here who I truly, truly value. She has some really stunning comparisons with this as well, but she did that video before I ever got this one in, or this one, because I got this one in the Black Friday sale and it didn't get to me until December, and this took a while to come to me because the only place I could find it when it came back was the official Makeup by Mario website, which is based out of the US. So this was expensive, but I'll talk about this one secondly. We have the I Need a Nude, and a lot of people were saying when this came out, it's made to look more cool toned in the promotional pictures than it actually is when you get it home. It's not, at least not to me. Remember what I say in my intro that I have a cool to neutral undertone, and it's that neutral undertone that loves this color story. The only thing that's warm here to me is these peachy tones. So if I cover this up, like on me, this is a rosy tone. Like it's got a lot of pink in for me. Some of the other shades as well. It's got a lot of like pink and a little bit of taupe, but like brown taupes rather than gray leaning taupes. And that's why it works. This was so beautiful. I got so many compliments as I was wearing this to work. I already put this and also the Makeup by Mario in my top 15 favorite neutral eyeshadow palettes that I did in January. I wanted to make a point of trying these as soon as I could so that I could figure out whether I wanted to feature them in that video, and I do not regret it 1 minute. This is now one of my favorite neutral palettes. It just is. Like, it just does everything. And for a Natasha Denona palette, like, it does have a bit of contrast. It has a deep shade, but that isn't so deep that you can't make it work. So if you have fair skin and you have a similar coloring to mine, I think you might really, really enjoy this. Plus bonus point, this is a 15 pan and we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shimmers, 7 mattes, 8 shimmers, which I just like, and you just get all the mattes you need. You get your taupe, you get that rosy thing, you get a taupe to blend things out, you get the peach if you want to, and even though these like look really orange in the pan, on me they pulled like pinky peach. So again, I wasn't mad about it. Like very often with like peachy tones, if they pull very orange, I never liked them on myself, but these were pretty. It was like, for like the springtime, it's incredibly pretty, I think. And then, of course, you get like some deeper things as well, something like this and this. And these are essentially like bronzy browns, but they have a cooler undertone to them. So what I really appreciate about the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude is that all of these shades are like smack in the middle between a warm tone and a cool tone. It's a true neutral palette. There is nothing here that skews overly warm or overly cool. And that is very rare to find because most makeup is warm toned. We already know that. And then if brands go like, oh, we need to do a cool tone, they do the exact opposite of all the oranges they're already doing. And they turn everything into a flat gray that doesn't do anything for anyone. Of course, if you truly love your grays, it might, but just saying. But like these like in-betweeny kind of shades, we don't get it. And I think that's why so many people who did not like this palette may not like it, because they want something that really brings that undertone out. But if you have a neutral undertone like I do, and you find that you can wear a warm tone or a cool tone and it doesn't really matter, but you've never found that palette that truly makes your heart sing, look into this. Because it might make it definitely did for me. It's got, in true Natasha Denona style, it has some textures in the shimmers as well. So you get some satiny things, but you also get some like toppery, flaky things, which are just fun to play with to layer over a matte or over another shimmer. That's one of the reasons why I just love Natasha Denona eyeshadow palettes. The color stories are drab. Like color story wise, this brand needs to figure out their game. But for once, I've tried a palette where I'm like, I don't think I want to reorganize that. I think I want to keep it as is. Which is rare for me because I've reorganized all of my other larger size Natasha Denona palettes in some shape, way, or form. So yes, Natasha Denona I Need a Nude was very successful indeed. Which leads us to the final palette, which is the Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes. And I already mentioned, this thing cost me a pretty penny. This is the Makeup by Mario. Let me show them to you side by side so you can see. There we go. So you can see where people are coming from. Like you get those like peachy tones here, but I feel that the Makeup by Mario is a little less one note. Like this, the Natasha Denona, sort of covers the same ground and stays in its own little lane. Whereas this, like you have actual true cool tones in. You have true actual warm tones in. But these two pulled red on me. These look so much like they're going to go with the peachy tones. They did not. I pulled 3 or 4. Like, I couldn't stop using this. 3 or 4 stunning looks out of it. You get one, like, satin shade, and the other shimmers in here are a texture I've never felt before. I said it when I was doing my neutral palette video as well. There's just something about these shimmers, and also the mattes, by the way. Formula-wise, this is something I've never touched before. Like, the way these feel, how they're created, how finely milled they are, and especially within the shimmers, like, they feel like those, like, putty things that you also get in the Beauty Bay. That's how they feel when you touch them. But they perform so well with a brush. Oh my word, it's so, so beautiful. You can pick up a little bit with a brush, dab it on, and you get a sheer wash of color. Then you can go in with your fingers and intensify it, and you can keep building and building and building until you get to a high shine metallic. So I like options. So with the Natasha Denona, you get a little bit of everything, and that gives you the options. With this, you have limited options. Not gonna lie, this is very limiting in terms of color story and what you can do, because it's pretty light. Even the deepest shade in here isn't super intense and impactful at first. I mean, I can put this in the crease. I can put this in the crease and I'm fine, even though it's the darkest shade, which I usually cannot do. However, you can build it and build it and build it until it goes this dark and like chocolatey intense brown to the point where you can use it as an eyeliner or to deepen up the outer V. I have never worked with eyeshadow that is just this incredibly versatile. And because you get an entire array of different colors in here, it can work on any skin tone, whether people are warm toned or cool toned or neutral. There are no true neutral shades in here. It's like warm, cool, but never that sort of like in between, because these reddish tones essentially are also a little bit warm leaning, you could say. And then you get this is warm, this shimmer is warm, this shimmer is warm. But this is quite cool tone, this is cool tone, this is cool tone, this is cool toned. This is like the only true neutral shade, and then you just get something to blend things out if you so wish. So this looks very one note, but because of how the formula works, it works so much better. Now, was it worth the money? I think it is. I think it is. I would gladly pay the 100 euros I had to pay for this again. Because on the Makeup by Mario website, if I set my location to the Netherlands, this palette retails for 80 euros, and I had to pay a flat rate of 20 euros for the shipping and handling. I wasn't hit with additional customs though. So I feel that within the price point and the shipping, you're already paying for the custom fees because it was just sent to my house and there was no additional customs on top of it. That's the thing I was afraid of, that on top of the palette and the shipping, I had to pay for even more, and I wasn't. So they're probably upping their prices a little bit for customers in the European Union so that you're not hit with any additional costs once it arrives at your doorstep, which I find is the better way for brands if you are shipping from the US or another location, to just ask for higher prices so that your customers aren't hit with any unexpected costs. However, Sephora UK has announced that the Ethereal Eyes palette is coming to the UK. So I think if I had waited, I could have gotten this cheaper, because I think it originally retails for like $65 or $70, which I then expect the like price point in pounds to be roughly the same thing. They just change the dollar sign to a pound sign usually. But yeah, that means that you, like, also if you were traveling to London, you might be able to pick it up in store. Of course, there's no guarantee. However, I have found that Sephora UK ships Makeup by Mario products to customers in the EU. So, and the price for the shipping I thought was not, it wasn't 20 euros. Like, it wasn't as expensive as this one is. So if you want to get this for a little bit cheaper, then I think you might. But yeah, formula-wise, I was blown away because this looks so unassuming in the pan. It just does. It really doesn't look like much at all when you just look at it, but you have to feel it to believe it, you could say. Like, the way these blended, the way they went on the eye, I think I like this. Would I reach for this over the Natasha Denona? I think this is more like my everyday, and then this is for like the special occasions. You know how I feel? You know how that works? Yeah, I think I do feel about it that way. So as I mentioned, because I have these two, I don't feel I necessarily need the Gravity palette in my life. However, it is the only Be Perfect palette I've tried, so I'm definitely going to keep it around because I did like it. I was impressed with it for sure. Like the mattes in that a little bit better than I did the shimmers. In these, I both like the mattes and the shimmers as much as the other things like I just did. I think with this, you can go with whatever is easiest for you to get a hold of. So if Makeup by Mario is easier to get, then maybe get that one. If you just know you like your Natasha Denona, you might want to get that. I feel, though, that this one is that smack in the middle palette that I haven't seen a lot of brands do in a very long time. And this one is going to give you shades that really pull warm or cool, but they mix and match beautifully, and you can work a lot of different shades into your looks. So both of them give you options. This, I think, is better if perhaps you're doing a lot of makeup on other people. That's definitely how I feel about this. Like, this feels like makeup artist makeup. This feels more like consumer aimed. I'm not sure if I'm making a lot of sense, but yeah, those were the 10 palettes I tried in January of 2024. I will, of course, be doing another eyeshadow palette review for you in February. Then I have another 10 palettes to get to, so I need to get going because I don't want to run into that issue again of like having to do like 6 looks a day and like upsetting my entire eye area for a few days, because I want to be able to do all the looks. Oh well. So yeah, thank you so very much for joining me today. Let me know in a comment down below which of these palettes is your favorite. I would love to know. Thumbs up the video in the meantime. I really hope you'd like to come back for more. Subscribe to the channel if that's the case, because then you will be updated when I post a new video. And yeah, thank you so very much for joining me, and see you in the next one. Bye-bye.